The sky used to be a soft thing. Well, blue, wide, predictable. You could look up and lose yourself in it. Now it looks back. Now it burns. Since the breach, since the ultraviolet bulged through the shredded skin of the atmosphere, the color has drained out of the heavens. The blue is gone. What's left is the kind of gray that doesn't move. Not cloud. Not smoke. Just a permanent smear. A chemical bruise hanging above the husk of what we used to call home. The collapse of the ozone wasn't a bang. It was a sigh. Years of frayed layers. Then an acceleration we couldn't outpace. Volcanic injections, methane plumes from melted permafrost, the death of phytoplankton, all of it stacking like cards until the deal was rigged. The last reliable measurement came from one of the abandoned NOAA satellites, UVC spiking at ground level across the plains. Exposure time for cellular damage, 60 seconds. It's not heat that gets you, it's the radiation. The sun is still there, but now it slices. Even here, beneath my shielded outpost, I can feel it. The air is thinner, the light sharper, metal warps, plants crisp. When I was a meteorologist, the sky told me stories. It warned us, whispered change. Now it howls in silence. No more jet trails, no more gulls, no more clouds that mean rain is coming. Just a hard light and a knowing. But I keep watching, keep tracking. I've got instruments cobbled from old weather vanes and solar compasses, pieces of an old NOAA base pulled from the wreck of Lincoln. Some of them still work, barely, enough to read the pulses, enough to feel the tremor of ultraviolet roaring through the stratosphere, like a wound that won't clot. The sky used to shelter us. Now it's just a ceiling of warning. I remember the last clear day, not because it was special, but because I didn't know it was the last. That's the thing about endings. They don't always declare themselves. They just happen, and you remember too late. We were outside the city. My daughter Lena had dragged me into a field that bloomed despite the droughts. Wildflowers. Scrappy things that had no right to grow there, but did. She ran ahead, spinning in circles, her arms wide, catching sunlight like it meant something. I remember the way she laughed. Not just the sound, though that's tattooed on my brain, but the way it rang against the wind, like she was daring the world to stay good just one moment longer. That was before the sky turned sick, before the light shifted, before we started covering every inch of skin just to survive. A trip to the well? We didn't know. The measurements hadn't caught up. The science was still behind the curve of collapse. It was just a day. A rare, stolen day where a father watched his daughter make music with her breath and her joy and the sun itself. I think about that a lot now, not because I want to, but because silence has space in it, and memory is a noisy thing when you're alone. For anyone still listening, if the lights turned on you too, here's what's kept me alive. Reflective tarp, layered, angled, triple sealed. You need at least 2 mylar sheets with an air pocket between. Hung like a tent but sloped to shed heat. If you're lucky, you've got the kind with silver backing. Old emergency blankets, anything with a metallic face. Anchor them with stone or rusted pipe. Wind's gone still lately, but a rogue gust can still tear what little you've built. Underneath, dig shallow. Ground temps cooler by a few degrees if you can get beneath asphalt or old crawl space dirt. I run a recycled car battery to power a fan. Nothing fancy, just enough to move air under the tarp dome. If you've got charcoal, use it. Passive filters can help scrape the burn out of your breath. Don't go out between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. That's when the UVC bites hardest. It won't tan you. It'll strip you. I used to laugh at the preppers. Now I am one, sculpted by necessity instead of paranoia. My tarp shelter isn't a home. It's a pause button, a skin between me and the sun. And somehow, it still feels sacred, a thing built by hand, in a world trying to unbuild everything else. Something came through the shortwave last night. Just a blink, 20 seconds of garbled tones. Most of the time, it's static out there. The world's too quiet now, and the atmosphere too fractured for a clean signal bounce. But this was rhythmic, repeating, almost patterned. It sounded like an old distress format, not military, civilian, maybe scientific, maybe weather station. It could be nothing. Could be the dying pulse of a dead repeater caught in a loop. But it came from North Band, Greenland, if I'm reading right. I checked the logbooks. That station went dark 3 winters ago. Solar batteries failed. The last team evacuated, or so we thought. So now I'm sitting with this echo, this pulse, trying to figure out whether it's the sound of someone holding on, or just the final breath of a machine forgetting how to be useful. But still, it was a voice of sorts, and that's rare now. This is Miles Harrington, still broadcasting, still listening. The sky used to give us forecasts, sun or snow, hope or hail. Now it just hangs there, like a verdict, a silent sentence written in light too cruel to trust. But I'll be here. For those who remember weather, and for those born under plastic roofs and tarp suns. If you're out there, I hope your shelter holds. I hope your water's clean. I hope the silence hasn't swallowed you whole. This is Station Zero, fading, but not gone. You're listening to Station Zero. This is Miles Harrington, still breathing, still beneath the burn. The flares came again last night. Unexpected, feral, the kind of spike we used to track with satellites before the magnetosphere buckled. Now we just guess and survive. Ultraviolet C hit ground level over the lower latitudes. Surface temperature soared, but it wasn't the heat that mattered. It was the light. The silent, skinless light. I used to watch these storms from a lab outside Tulsa. We'd pull real-time data from solar observatories, tracking the flares like waves. Now there's no shield left. The sun cracks open space, and the Earth no longer answers. Back then, we called it geomagnetic turbulence. Now it's just collapse. The magnetosphere, our ancient halo of protection, is fractured. Coronal mass ejections don't get deflected anymore. They pierce, they alter, and with the thinning atmosphere, aerosol layers destabilize faster than we can measure. 2026 saw the last attempt to fix it. The UN launched 3 stratospheric sulfur dispersal balloons. They burst before reaching altitude. One poisoned a valley in Romania. One never launched. One still floats, untethered, somewhere over a dead sea. The silence in the sky now is complete. No birds, no planes, no warning systems, just the hum of empty wavelengths where weather used to live. I measure the atmosphere with repurposed sensors and hope, but today's hope reads low. Air pressure is stable, but the UV index has breached 9. That's not survivable in the open. Skin damage begins in under a minute. Retinal damage in seconds. If you have shielding, stay under it. If you have mirrors, reflect what you can. The sun doesn't love us anymore, but we still need it to see. There was a woman I once interviewed, back when interviews still meant microphones and coffee and laughing off the end of the world. Her name was Lydia Varnes, solar physicist, brilliant, reclusive, angry at institutions, but not at people. She believed in observation, in letting the world speak before we tried to fix it. Said geoengineering was like cauterizing a wound while blindfolded. She was right. We'd talk after airings, sometimes long after the station went dark, about everything from hydrogen bonding to nursery rhymes. She used to say, "The sun's not cruel. It's just constant. It's us that forgot how to listen." Lydia was stationed at the Yellowstone Solar Relay before it went offline in 2007. We lost contact days before the blackout, but her final message came through. Garbled, shaky. I play it sometimes. Not for information, just for the reminder of voice. Miles, flare intensity, wrong. We modeled it wrong. Not shielding, not sulfur. It's inside the layers. It's in the... then static. Then nothing. I've never deleted it. She understood before we did. That collapse isn't a single event. It's an accumulation of quiet failings stacked until breath thins and light hurts. Some nights, I wonder if she made it underground. Most nights I know better. If you're still out there and the sun got to you. Here's what we learned the hard way. UV poisoning doesn't show itself like a fever. It's silent. Begins in the blood, not the skin. Fatigue, nausea, sensory noise. Then the blisters come, not from heat, but from cellular rupture. We treat it with what's left. Activated charcoal, trying. The good kind, from compressed bone or wood ash. Mix it with boiled water, cool it, drink it slow. Zinc paste helps. If you still have any from the old first aid kits, spread it on the pressure points, neck, temples, wrists, not for healing, for slowing the damage. Old soldiers use this trick in desert warfare. Inner shirts soaked in brine, then dried under tarp to make salt ceramic mesh. It won't stop the UVC, but it'll buy you minutes. If you're too late, stay hydrated and go dark. Let the body focus on repair. Sleep if you can. If you can't, lie still. We've forgotten what sunlight used to mean. It once helped us grow. Now it strips us down. And we still crawl toward it, like moths that don't know they're flammable. Just before I signed off last night, the static changed. Most of the time, the frequencies hum, dull, empty, indifferent. But this wasn't noise. It was a rhythm, sharp, staggered, Morse, or something close. I isolated it, slowed it down, 3 short bursts, then 2 long, then silence, then repeat. It's not machine error, not solar feedback. The pattern was intentional. A call across the dark. I pulled out the old charts, checked the relay grid. The signal came from somewhere along the Greenland arc. Same band as the one I caught last week. That makes 2 anomalies, 2 echoes that might mean someone's speaking back. I want to believe it's real, that it's human, but I've made that mistake before. Once I tracked a repeating code for 3 days, it was a water pump misfiring on a relay line. But this is different. Clean edges, steady pulse, something reaching, even if it doesn't know who it's reaching for. I've rigged the directional antenna again, tuned it toward the noise. Maybe tomorrow it'll repeat. Maybe tomorrow it won't. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, the silence wasn't alone. This is Miles Harrington, still listening, still decoding shadows. You don't notice the silence at first. Not when the world collapses in chaos. It's too loud then. Too many sirens, too much static, too much human noise trying to outshout extinction. But after it quiets, after the screaming and the breaking and the fleeing, you begin to hear the absences. And the one that broke me wasn't the hum of city lights or the buzz of morning news. It was the birds, or rather, the lack of them. No calls, no songs, no wings cutting through dawn. Just the sound of your own breath in a world that no longer sings. It started with the insects, of course. Acid rain took most of them in the first waves. Their chitin too fragile. Their breeding cycles too tight to adapt. No insects, no pollination. No pollination, no seeds. No seeds, no birds. What few avians survived, the early disruptions fell to UV sterilization. Their eggs wouldn't hold shape. Membranes thinned. Shells broke in the nest before the hatchlings ever saw light. I found a feather once caught in the chain link of the northern fence. Bright blue, maybe a jay. Or what was once a jay. I didn't keep it. Didn't need to. The memory of touch, of something that used to fly, was enough to stain my hand. I used to record migration paths, track murmuration patterns like art. Now I track radiation blooms and look for pulses in a sky that no longer welcomes flight. Silence is a strange kind of cruelty. You think it's peace? until it outlives its purpose. I haven't heard birdsong in 2 years, and the quiet is beginning to rot. Before the jet streams went still, there was a man named Jules. Mechanic, tinkerer, survivor of the old dust storms out west. He showed up with a cart full of scrap and eyes that knew the sky better than the satellites ever did. Jules taught me how to listen to the wind, not just the rush of it, but the spaces inside it, the hitches that meant rain or heat or that something had broken far away. He built wind traps, elegant things made of bent aluminum and salvaged wire. They didn't generate power. They captured condensation, coaxed water from breathless air. When the wind still moved, they whispered across the traps like forgotten hymns. It was beautiful for a time. We had a child passing through once, her parents long gone. Jules taught her how to whistle, that sharp 2-note bird call people used to use before smartphones. She couldn't stop doing it. It echoed around the shelter like something from a time when joy was casual. Then one day, Jules left. Said he'd heard rumors of movement in the south. A supply caravan, maybe. A signal. He didn't say much, just packed his wires, his copper coils, and the last working compass we had. I waited 3 weeks, then stopped. But when the wind rises, on the rare days it still does, it catches the edges of those old traps, and they sing. Just for a moment. And I swear, sometimes it sounds like Jules, whistling from a place the silence can't touch. I've been tracking the decline in oxygen content using a retrofitted gas spectrometer wired through what's left of the solar relay. The results aren't hopeful. Used to be, ambient oxygen sat around 21%. Now it scrapes 16 in the mornings, lower when the wind dies, higher near green domes. The few that still hold, you can feel it in your bones, even before the meters tell you. Shallow breaths, fatigue after standing too fast, headaches that throb like grief, the kind that whisper, your cells are losing the race. But it's not just us. The soil is struggling too. Atmospheric nitrogen bonding, the process that once fed microbial life, is breaking down. Without it, even the bacteria that feed roots can't breathe. The fungi can't pass nutrients. The cycle fractures. I read a paper once, old archive, said that plant root systems behave like primitive lungs. They inhale chemical cues, exhale adjustments into the environment. Not anymore. Now they just hold their breath. There are still pockets of resistance, moss colonies in the deep valleys, oxygen-purging algae sealed in reinforced glass. But they're losing ground. Sunlight is poison. Rain is acid. Wind is memory. When I was a boy, I used to dig in the garden behind my father's house. Tomatoes grew on lean stalks. I'd push my fingers into the dirt, feel the warmth, the wetness, the life. Now the earth is pale, dry on top, dead underneath. And still, we try. We bury seeds like prayers. We build terrariums and green rooms and breath domes with scraps and cracked plastic. Because even if the air forgets how to love us, we remember how to breathe. And that has to count for something. The warning light blinked while I was speaking just now. Soft at first, a dull amber glow pulsing in the corner of the console. Not urgent, not screaming. Just steady, like a heartbeat, trying to stay calm. O2 scrubber's efficiency dropped below 40%. Could be the filters, could be power cycling, could just be age. Everything down here is older than it should be. I'll swap out the charcoal stack in the morning, reroute the fan, maybe sacrifice one of the old solar caps to boost voltage. But I know what it means. There's less air to clean, and more to lose if it fails. Funny how a single light, not red, not yet, can feel louder than thunder. It doesn't shout. It doesn't panic. It just reminds me. The lungs of the earth are wheezing, and I am still breathing in their echo. I caught something again last night. Same band, same fragmented pulse. It pushed through the hiss like a voice half remembered. A breath that almost formed a word, Morse-like, almost military but uneven, intentional, human or trying to be. I recorded it, replayed it for hours through the modulation filters. 3 longs, 1 short, space, then again. It isn't weather, not a relay glitch either. This pattern is stubborn, structured. I pulled out the old arc map, plotted signal decay, northbound, likely Arctic, maybe the edge of the Greenland shelf, same quadrant where the Solace vessel vanished, climate research ship, supposed to have gone down 2 years ago when the icebreaker roots melted into chaos. But if that dome held, it's a reach, I know. But reach is all we have left. I once taught undergrads how to map signal paths based on polar curvature and atmospheric bounce. We used to laugh about the Cold War days, spies, weather balloons, encrypted frequencies buried beneath white noise. It felt like myth then. It feels like longing now. What matters is this: someone may still be out there, or some echo of someone, a footprint made of static, a voice pressed into the fold between frequencies, waiting for someone like me. Alone, half dreaming in a ruin, to answer. I don't know if I can help them, or if they're even still breathing, but I'm going to try. Because when the sky goes quiet, we owe each other sound. The first time I heard the Greenlandic lullaby, I was on air. Back when radio reached living rooms instead of bunkers, a woman named Inga sent it in. Said it was passed down from her grandmother, who sang it during snow bursts when the wind clawed at the sealskin tents. She sang it slow, in a minor key. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the weight. I played it live without translation, let it drift out across the grid. 1 minute of melody carried by copper and cloud. I still have it, backed up on analog. I listen to it now sometimes. When the static gets too loud, it reminds me that not all signals are meant to warn. Some were made to comfort. Some were made to last longer than the voices that carried them. And I think about that when I pick apart these polar pulses. Maybe what I'm hearing now isn't a distress signal. Maybe it's a lullaby of a different kind. The last note of someone trying not to vanish. Music doesn't need breath to endure. It just needs pattern, shape, will. We can lose a city, a continent, a decade, and still one song can slip through. A whisper that doesn't rot. So tonight I'll play that lullaby again. Just under the noise floor. Maybe someone on the other side of the storm will hear it. And maybe they'll know they're not alone in the snow. While I chase ghost signals, the radiation creeps. Quiet, absolute. The latest lab scrap I've managed to scavenge, an old decommissioned mutagenesis paper, confirms what we feared. At UVC exposure levels above threshold, cellular structures begin fragmenting, not just at the dermis, but at the DNA interface. It's not just sunburn anymore, it's rewrite. UVC cleaves the thymine bonds, scrambles cell replication. Every minute of exposure is a biological coin toss. Cancer at best, degeneration at worst. We used to think you needed a nuclear trigger to change the genome. Turns out you just need to let the sun in without asking permission. Children born after the breach are showing chromosomal drift, early cataracts, immune collapse. In one case, I heard over shortwave, a newborn in Sao Paulo had no functional melanin at all. The parents named her Alba, said her skin looked like breath. I don't know what kind of world she'll grow into, if she's still breathing. But I do know this: light no longer just reveals. Now it alters. And we, old species, proud species, didn't build ourselves strong enough for that kind of intimacy. Still, we broadcast. Still, we write. We tell stories with breaking hands and damaged genes because that's what the light hasn't taken yet. Our voices, our memory, our resistance and rhythm. I've begun realignment of the directional rig. It's slow going. One of the old solar servos seized, had to reroute through a bicycle chain and 2 glass insulators from a junked substation. But it holds, pointed northwest, 42 degrees. catching bounce from the ionospheric scatter if I time the pulses right. The air is brittle out there. You can feel it, not just the cold, but the thinness, like trying to breathe on top of a memory that doesn't want to be remembered. But the signal came from that edge, the pattern, the anomaly. And if someone whispered once, they may whisper again. I've left the frequency open. A tone marker repeats every 60 seconds. Software subsonic. Like a heartbeat held in a glass jar. If anything responds, anything at all, I'll hear it. I'll be here. That's what this has become, hasn't it? Not survival, not even endurance. Just presence. A willingness to remain audible in a world that forgot how to echo. This is Miles Harrington. Still scanning the dark, still building bridges of wire and hope. The wind has gone still. Not quiet, not subtle. Still, the jet streams that once pulled cloud bands across the continents, like threads through a loom, they've collapsed, fragmented, reversed in some places, vanished in others. Without them, the weather doesn't move, the skies don't churn. The earth holds its breath, and we wait in the stale hush that follows. I remember when we used to measure wind shear for storm forecasting, cyclone potential, air quality migration, all gone now. The thermohaline conveyor collapsed first. The AMOC slowdown everyone feared finally tipped. Ocean heat redistributed wrong. Vapor flows misaligned, and the winds, the great atmospheric rivers, evaporated like myth. Now I can go entire days without a breeze passing through the outpost. Dust hangs in the air like ash in a cathedral. Stale. Sacramental. Flags don't wave, trees don't bend. The sky just watches. Wind was how we knew. The earth was alive, breathing, shifting, communicating with itself. Without it, the heat lingers longer. UVC settles instead of scattering. Smog doesn't drift. It waits. And us? We breathe what doesn't belong in lungs. I sometimes stand outside the hatch, holding out a strip of gauze, hoping it will flutter just once, a flicker of air to remind me that motion still exists, that something, somewhere, still stirs. But it doesn't. The earth is still, and stillness is just silence stretched out in all directions. Her name was Norah, midwife, nurse, second-generation survivalist. She built her birthing center underground, 20 feet beneath the rusted shell of a collapsed maternity ward. She said new life shouldn't arrive beneath a dead roof. She ran it on scavenged battery packs and copper wiring, rain catchers above, algae lamps below. It wasn't sterile, but it was safe as anything could be. We spoke once, over shortwave, traded survival notes, water filtration diagrams, a joke or two about naming newborns after geological disasters. She laughed like someone who'd heard too many final breaths, but still believed in first cries. Her last message came through 7 months ago. Garbled but clear enough. A child was born today. No defects, lungs working, premature cataracts, but breathing. She ended with something soft. The child sees no sky. But she opened her eyes anyway. I haven't heard from Norah since. Maybe she moved further, underground. Maybe power ran out. Maybe hope did. But I hold on to that line. She opened her eyes anyway. Because we're still doing that, aren't we? Opening our eyes in a world that no longer earns it. Letting in the dark, the dust, the flicker of light that stings more than it saves. Somewhere, in a chamber of plastic and metal and dirt, a child took her first breath. And that is still enough for me to speak into the static. For anyone listening, if your lungs are working harder than they used to, here's what I've pieced together. Oxygen loss is subtle. You don't feel it go all at once. First you sleep more. Then you can't climb stairs. Then your thoughts get heavy, like dragging your mind through syrup. Here's how I fight it. Start with a container, airtight if you can. An old fridge shell works best. Seal the seams with heat tape or wax. Inside, you need algae, spirulina or chlorella, dry stock, rehydrated. It still scrubs CO2 when exposed to light. Red spectrum LED is key. Full spectrum burns too hot and confuses the cycle. Old grow lights from hydroponic farms work if you've got a capacitor steady enough to hold them. Pump air through using aquarium tubing and a bicycle filter. Crank it by hand. If need be, slowly, constantly. Let the algae do its work. It won't be fast, but it's clean. I rigged a condensation trap too. Keeps humidity stable. I sleep beside mine now. It hums like an old refrigerator. It smells faintly of pond water and dust. But it keeps me lucid. We used to terraform labs in controlled conditions. Now we do it in ruins. I don't know how long this setup will hold. But it's better than nothing. And in this world, better than nothing is the new miracle. If your breath feels thin, don't panic. You're not weak. The air is, fix what you can, seal what you must, and keep the green things near. I've been holding off saying this, but my O2 scrubber's been running below spec for weeks. The readings say I'm getting about 13.5% purity now. Too low for comfort. Just high enough to keep talking. I didn't want to worry anyone. Or maybe I didn't want to hear it aloud. I've noticed the changes. My hands shake more than they used to. I lose words. I drift mid-thought and have to climb back. But this broadcast, this act of reaching, it keeps the blood moving. It keeps the lungs from forgetting what they're for. I've been rationing movement, cutting the fan hours, sleeping less to breathe more. It's a strange equation. How many moments you give up just to stretch out the ones you still have. And the air? It's getting warmer, drier, thinner. A ghost version of what we used to call atmosphere, but I'm still here. Still breathing. Still feeding this old transmitter whatever's left in my lungs because someone might be out there waiting to hear a voice. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it isn't. But this act, reminds me that breath is not just survival. It's presence. It's resistance. It's ritual. This is Miles Harrington. Still broadcasting, still surviving, even if it takes my last good breath to do it. It wasn't much. The voice cracked like brittle paper, run through a grinder. But it came. A 30-second pulse from the Arctic shelf, coordinates near Laptov Sea. A frequency that hadn't blinked in over a year. We saw light, dome intact, 47 alive. I played it 10 times, slowed it down, boosted the high end. It's real, human, not a glitch, not a solar echo, a survivor, a station, a dome, and the number, 47. Not many, but more than none. They must have been living under the ice. Some sort of sealed dome, geothermal maybe, possibly a remnant of the Solace expedition. If they kept their algae farms intact, their filters clean, then yes, they could still be breathing, still seeing light. Light. I keep thinking about that word, how casually it was spoken. We saw light, not fire, not UV burn. Light, as if the sky still remembers how to be gentle, at least somewhere. I've locked in the signal's envelope and reinforced the antenna's directional gain. I'll try to reach them tonight. Just a pulse, maybe. A ping across the dark. I don't know if I'll get a response, but it's enough to know that somewhere, someone looked up and saw illumination and didn't die for it. We haven't heard confirmation like this in over 8 months. 47 hearts still ticking at the edge of the frozen world. That's 47 reasons to keep breathing. 47 reasons to stay on air. And maybe, just maybe, one of them remembers my voice. We weren't always this fractured. There was a time when we sent stories ahead of ourselves, voices through wires, memory etched onto magnetic tape, words pressed into vinyl and steel and glass. Before we built walls to keep the poison out, we built signals to let our humanness in. Before domes, we had dialogue. That's the thing I keep returning to. Even when the air was safer, we still yearned to hear each other from a distance. A lullaby in the night, a radio in a storm, a stranger calling into a void, hoping the void might answer with something human. I think that's what kept me broadcasting. Long after the infrastructure failed, long after the metrics stopped making sense, this station isn't about survival metrics anymore. It's about memory, proof, noise turned sacred by intention. We don't shelter because we're strong. We shelter because we're afraid. But voices don't flinch. They cross ice shelves. They cut through dust. They slip under dying auroras and past silence that has forgotten its own sound. So when I hear a fragment, even a broken halting syllable from someone frozen beneath the Arctic skin, I don't hear a warning. I hear continuity. And that is the closest thing to hope I still recognize. We used to be protected by layers we couldn't see, invisible blankets of air and magnetism that scattered the sun's rage, burned up rock, whispered away the worst of what space tried to send. But now the sky is thinning, and that word doesn't feel metaphorical anymore. The mesosphere, that upper vault that once incinerated debris before it kissed the earth, is collapsing. Not all at once, but piece by high altitude piece. Atmospheric drag is failing, and with it, our last natural firewall. There was a time when meteorites died quietly in the upper dark, glowed briefly, burned up into memory, harmless, beautiful, not anymore. Last week, I recorded a Doppler event overhead. Low rumble, ground tremble. Nothing exploded, not here, but something passed too low, too hot, too fast. That was stone that should have shattered in orbit. If the mesosphere degrades further, we won't just have radiation to worry about. We'll have the sky itself falling in shards, ancient rock, abandoned satellites, scraps of civilization circling back down to remind us what we once sent up. No fire left to stop them. It's poetic in a brutal kind of way. To be undone by gravity's return. To have space reclaim its leftovers and hurl them through a sky too tired to resist. But that's where we are. Beneath a roof that's becoming perforated, beneath a sky that no longer guarantees anything but exposure. We used to look up for awe. Now we look up for warning, and soon we may stop looking up at all. As I was prepping the return signal, the backup battery sparked. A short, minor, but sharp enough to send the lights flickering and the fan wheezing. The room didn't go dark, but it considered it. That battery's been running hot for weeks. I've been draining it harder than I should. The antenna array, the filters, the diagnostics rig. Hope costs energy, and I'm not budgeting well. I shut the auxiliary relay, let the system cool, but the damage is creeping. A kind of entropy that doesn't scream. It just hums quieter each day. I sat in the half-dark for a while. No sound but the algae pump and my own breath. The kind of quiet that makes your ribs feel too wide, like your body's waiting for something that isn't coming. I'll get it patched. Probably. Strip wire from the broken transceiver. Maybe sacrifice the UV lamp I've been saving. But even if I can't, even if this transmission ends mid-word, the Arctic voice is out there. A dome with light. 47 souls holding fast against the frost. I might never reach them. But the fact that they exist is the reason I speak now. We send signals not to be answered, but to prove we still can. And if tonight is my last full power cycle, then this breath, this broadcast, this syllable, it matters. This is Miles Harrington, still here, still wired to the silence, still believing someone's listening. The batteries are fading again. Power flickers when I turn the signal amp too high. But I wanted to share these tonight Messages pulled from signal repeaters buried along the old copper grids. Not ghosts, not data, people. Words from beneath the rot. They arrive broken, half-formed, spliced by wind damage and time. But they arrive, and what survives the static is often more human than what we used to call communication. First one came from the Wallowa repeater, a short burst from what I think is a cave shelter north of Idaho. The sender didn't sign a name, just, "We built light from waste, made heat from ash. We are 11 now. One is expecting. We don't cry anymore, but we still sing." Another came in low band from Turkey, a scavenger describing an underground greenhouse made from mirrored ceiling tiles and dental reflectors. He says his cucumbers sprouted last week. He calls them green teeth. Says it helps to laugh, even when no one's around. There's a letter from someone named Estelle. A long format message somehow encoded over 6 bursts and threaded together manually. She writes, "When the sun left, I stopped looking up. But when the carrots broke through the clay and the leaves opened beneath LEDs, I knelt. I thanked the ground. I never did that before. Not once." That line, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I never did that before. Maybe we all forgot how to kneel without a reason. Now, beneath 20 feet of concrete and sorrow, people are finding small reasons again. We buried the world, but the voices are still blooming through. There's a message in my inbox that's looped 3 times, not because of error, but because I keep playing it back. It's from a teacher in the Andean corridor, I think somewhere outside Santiago. She calls herself Madre Lyra. Her students, 12 of them, live in a sealed classroom beneath a collapsed observatory. She writes, "We use old telescope domes to focus solar light through leaded glass. It's too weak to burn, but enough to grow green." She describes them tending kale and mint under floodlights, reading poetry on recycled paper, and drawing stars on the ceiling because the sky no longer offers its own. Then there's Kweku, a teenager near Lake Volta. His signal was faint but fierce. Said his uncle found copper mesh in an old telecom vault, lined it with soot and lime, and built a sun trap in the hollow of a shipping crate. Kweku says they grow tomatoes now. Tiny ones. Sour, but red. He ends the message with, "When my cousin laughed today, it scared me." I forgot what that sounded like. We all did. But now we laugh too, just a little. It's easy to believe the world is ending everywhere all at once, but that's not true. Somewhere, mint leaves tremble beneath artificial dawn. Somewhere, someone is laughing. Even in a world trying to forget itself, the roots remember. My brother's name was David, pilot, Pacific routes mostly, cargo, sometimes passengers. He had a laugh like sandpaper, always left his shoes in the hallway, and believed in weather the way children believe in promises. In 27, he called me from a northern refuel point, said he was chasing something, not a storm, a rumor. He'd heard of a pocket down south. Patagonia, maybe. A stable zone untouched by the UV spikes. Less ozone decay. A valley where plants still flowered wild. I told him it sounded like mythology. He told me myths don't show up on radar. Moo. And then he laughed and said, "Maybe that's the point." That was the last time we spoke. I tracked every flight plan, every crash report, every black box ping. Nothing. His transponder winked out over open ocean. Some days I tell myself the plane went down. Other days, I imagine he made it. That he's out there, somewhere, growing basil on the edge of the world, waiting for the rest of us to catch up. But truth? The silence left by someone who loved the sky is louder than anything I've ever heard. I broadcast for many reasons, but one of them, quietly, stubbornly, is him. In case he's out there, in case he's listening, in case some part of that old cockpit is tuned to my frequency. David, if you made it, I'm still here, still beneath the clouds you loved, still calling. A few listeners have asked about green domes, atmospheric isolation, chambers. They're not fiction. If you can seal a structure, maintain internal humidity, and simulate the red-blue spectrums of natural light, you can sustain microclimate life. I've seen it done with bus shelters, sealed silos, even old hockey rinks turned terrariums. The trick isn't growth, it's breath. Plants must outpace our carbon. Roots must communicate. Soil must be inoculated with surviving fungi. You have to breathe smaller, quieter. Let the plants lead. Oxygen becomes a conversation, not a commodity. Each exhale, a vote for survival. Inside a green dome, nothing is wasted, not even loneliness. The antenna just collapsed. No wind, just weight. Rusted bolts, too many adjustments, too little metal left to hold. The mast folded like a tired spine. Took the relay dish with it. The signal cracked mid-transmission. I felt it. Like losing a limb you weren't born with. I'll rig something tomorrow, or the next day. But tonight the sky's quieter than it should be. And I'm still here, whispering into the static. This is Miles Harrington, still below, still listening. The sky fractured again last night, not a storm, not lightning, just a bending, a halo around the sun that shimmered violet at noon and blood red at dusk. It shouldn't happen, not at these latitudes, not at these angles. But then again, nothing behaves anymore. The UVC index has breached level 12 in the southern belt. Fatal exposure times now average under 90 seconds. Satellite readings, the few that still trickle in, show stratospheric ozone at under 180 Dobson units globally. Pockets near the poles are down to 110. That's not a hole anymore. That's a tear, a rip through the skin of the planet. We've reached the threshold. Sun halos, equatorial auroras, night air that smells of sterilized bone. It's not poetry. It's decay. In Technicolor, the sky doesn't scatter light the way it used to. Particulates are refracting wrong. Even the color of shadows is starting to change. Animals don't migrate anymore. They don't know how to read the sky. Neither do we. We used to navigate by stars. Now we navigate by absence of birds, of wind, of breathable hours. The sky isn't blue. It isn't gray. It's blank, like a canvas scrubbed too hard, too long. And yet, above all this, the sun still rises. It doesn't care. It doesn't grieve. It shines like it always has. Only now we're not protected from it. And light, without shelter, is just another way to burn. Before the world collapsed, we thought of the sky as infinite. A soft ceiling, a place for dreams, for gods, for weather. We never thought of it as breakable. But now I know. The sky was never a shield. It was a partnership. Quiet, constant, taken for granted. We exhaled, and it forgave. We scorched, and it adapted until it couldn't anymore. Oxygen levels dropped quietly. The CO2 rose noiselessly. Pressure thinned. Clouds stopped forming the way they used to. Storms forgot how to end. There was no great collapse, no sudden snap, just the slow unraveling of a thread. We didn't know we'd been pulling for centuries. We used to build towers to touch the clouds. Now we build shelters to hide from them. The sky didn't fail us. We failed to listen. I think about that a lot now. The things we thought permanent. The things we laughed at losing. Clean air, birdsong. The weight of sunlight on your face without pain. What the dying sky taught us was this. We are not owed protection. We are not owed tomorrow. And yet, even now, there are still seeds underground. There are still hands turning broken soil. There are still voices, like mine, reaching out across the static. Because we're not just trying to survive. We're trying to remember what it means to be worth surviving for. Earlier tonight, I caught a response. A faint signal from the same Arctic band I've been tracking for weeks. Stronger than before. Unmistakable. The voice trembled, But the message was clear. You are not alone. North is holding. Dome green, come if you can. That's it. 12 words. 12 impossibly beautiful syllables. The dome is alive. The soil is holding. They've reached self-sufficiency. Somehow, beneath miles of ice and isolation, they've carved out something we thought extinct. A biosphere that breathes. I don't know who sent the message. A scientist, maybe. A nurse. A child, now grown. But someone remembered how to speak across the dark, and they chose to send light. I'll record the signal and loop it at low band. Others may hear it. Others may reach it. I won't be the only one who needed that voice tonight. Because more than information, we needed proof that somewhere out there the world hasn't fully given up on itself. A green dome in the white silence. 47 still breathing. Maybe fewer now, but still enough. Enough to prove that we weren't wrong to try. This might be my last full transmission. The battery shelf is flickering. The charge monitor pulses faint amber. The air is thin in here tonight. I've said that before, I know. But now it's not metaphor. The antenna is down. The backup mast cracked last week in the frost shift. I've been broadcasting at half range, coil looping through handheld relay, whispering through ground waves. If this reaches you, it means something held. And if it doesn't, I said it anyway. The stars are out tonight. At least I think they are. The cloud ceiling's low, but I feel them. Not watching, just existing. Like they always have. Like they always will. I used to think we mattered more than we do. That the planet would notice our absence. But Earth doesn't mourn us. It recycles us. And the stars, they never promised anything. Still, I kept broadcasting. Not for rescue, not for answers, but because sound is a form of defiance, a kind of remembering, a refusal to go completely silent. So if you hear this, if you've tuned into a ghost frequency and found me here, know this. You were not the last, and neither was I. This is Miles Harrington, still here, still breathing, though barely, still believing that, even in collapse, something sacred persists. The sky is broken, but the signal for now still carries. And that is enough.